My name is Kednapa Thavorn. I am working as a senior scientist and also a health economist at the Ottawa Hospital Research Institute in Ottawa. And so right now, we very fortunate to actually receive funding from BioCanRx to actually looking at the cost and cost effectiveness of point of care manufacturer CAR T therapy. So it's like made in Canada CAR T. And this particular project receiving funding from BioCanRx Open Call. The end goal that we really hope is that we want to have these particular point of care CAR T therapy like more accessible for all Canadian and also patients living with cancer across the globe as well. So that's kind of the long-term goal. In the short run though, like our project have very simple objectives. So the first objective is we really want to help product developer to looking at their product to see in terms of how much does it cost to produce and also deliver this kind of therapy to patients at the hospital, and at the same time, how much does it cost to monitor them and ensure that the drug itself work well. These second objectives in terms of like looking at the value for money of like a point of care manufacturer CAR T compared to commercialized CAR T that currently available in Canadian markets. And we want to looking at like the data in terms of like the total cost and also the total outcome in terms of the quality of life gain and also the life year that has improved due to this particular therapy. In the end, we want to inform like health technology assessment agency to see in terms of like based on like their limited budget in terms of like how point of care manufacturer CAR T could fit into that. And in the end, really hope that this would allow like more patients to have access to medication. And the third objective is actually after we know the value for money, we also want to know like if like publicly funded healthcare system, public payers actually planning to adopt these point of care manufacturer CAR T, like what would be the budget or financial implication to the funder themselves? So we want to looking at like over the next 3 or 5 years to help them to plan the budget given the number of patients who may be eligible for this type of therapy. So yeah, so we hope that like if we actually like run through these 3 objectives, that would give Canadian like researcher and our colleague a really good chance to be able to actually push and make this particular therapy like become available to patients that actually really need them. So it's actually a really good opportunity for us to like I would say that like quite challenging the current norm of doing economic evaluation, economic assessments, because like typically these kind of analysis happen in a very late phase when drug has already been developed, already in the market. Then Health Technology Assessment Agency or HTA agency start asking the questions like, oh, whether like the benefit gain from this drug is like it's justified, it's like its cost, and like and in the end like there's no much chance for a product developer to actually trying to come back and say, is there anything that they can do in order to actually reduce and optimize their product and in the end increase the chance of making the product more cost effective. So that's why funding from BioCanRx actually allow our team to actually working with product development in a really early phase when they actually trying to find a way to optimize these particular click in terms of point of care manufacturer, like how we can make it a bit more efficient, like how we can refine, optimize that process. And the other thing, it's also we right now, I can say that's pretty novel for us is actually trying to engage patient partner into the process of doing cost effectiveness analysis, and with support from BioCanRx actually make it possible for us to actually engage more patients and allow us to create like training activity to ensure that they understand in terms of what do we mean by economic evaluation, rather than having them to actually be the last people to see an announcement, oh, I'm so sorry that like drug itself doesn't actually get approved. And majority of them in the past who think that, oh, because it's just too costly. But in reality, it's not just about cost, but it's actually about the value, it's the cost and benefit. So we hope that with this funding, it will allow us to actually make this particular technique in terms of economic evaluation more accessible to patient and the public as well. So it's really in the phase of like access and affordability. As I mentioned earlier, in terms of like, we really want to like talk about these access and affordability in really early phase of product development. And we want to work closely with product developer. Like the way that we work with Click team is, I really see it as like an initial phase of this kind of collaboration. And I really hope that we can do more with other cancer immunotherapy in terms of like make people think about, well, if my product work, also like whether it's actually going to be approved for funding. And if I want that to happen, so what should I think about at this phase when actually doing these particular, like do the develop and also trying to optimize my products? Because that will help in terms of inform in like the biomanufacturing process, just to make it more efficient and trying to think about, well, if it doesn't work, how they can actually optimize them. And the other things also could be an opportunity to looking at what would be an expected like potential indication. Because one of the things, as I mentioned earlier, is like we can also doing some modeling, doing our magic, crunching number, like looking at what they have in terms of early sign of information and what's already been reported, and then trying to integrate the two information together and create some sort of prediction to tell them and inform them in terms of which way could give you the best bang for your buck. I think it's really a collaboration and the phrase that I mentioned earlier in terms of challenging the norm, in terms of collaborating with people from different fields that typically not happen before. So I have opportunity to work with like a lot of like bench scientist colleagues who like in the past they kind of, oh yeah, like I kind of know kind of economics, but they don't like realize that it's also very important to them as well, and it's actually closer to them than they actually thought. And the other part is also the collaboration that I start to build and work with patient partner. I learn a lot from them, and I also like see in terms of like the importance to actually trying to incorporate their concern, their voice into the work we do. And I know that it's not going to be easy because they are pretty different aspects of the work that we do. It's highly technical field that to help people to understand what we do. But at the same time, like our colleague from like in terms of bench scientists and also patient, they don't need to be an economist to do the work, but they actually can provide their insight to improve the work, to ensure that in the end, everything we done makes sense and helpful and accessible to people. It's really about accessibility, but at the same time though, like as a health economist who also working with like a larger health system, I know it's going to be really difficult, but I really hope that accessible, it's like also come with like a sustainable healthcare system as well. Because as a health economist, we know that, well, there's no such thing as free lunch, right? So it's really mean that like if like the payer fund for one thing, it will mean that they have smaller money budget to pay for other things. So in their position, it's really difficult as well. But at the same time, we try our best to provide evidence from like different parties in terms of from the innovation point of view, from patient point of view, and at the same time, from a financial economic value. So hope that like all these informations actually help to support like funding agency to make an informed decision, and in the end, actually could improve like population health in general, especially like when it comes to cancer landscape, is really people who are living with cancer and also their loved ones as well.